I think on the issue of whether nuclear power should be allowed in Australia, you're going to get unanimous support, I think, on this side of the stage. I suspect in the room. So I probably don't have to convince anyone of this, but it occurs to me it is the big other alternative to unreliable, renewables, I misspoke. It is the other alternative to renewables that fixes the emissions, quote unquote, problem. So it lends itself to, if you want to solve the problem, this is one way to solve the problem. And then the rebuttal is, but it'll be too expensive. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second, but the first thing that comes to mind there is that if they think it's too expensive, why ban it?
Yeah.
I mean, either way, there's no reason to ban it, right? Either it's affordable and a good option we should have on the table, or unaffordable and it won't be on the table naturally. Yes. So there's no rationale to keep the ban. I think Australia is often 10 years behind the US in a lot of trends, and sometimes that's exciting and sometimes it's scary. I'm not an expert on what the energy market looked like in the 90s, so I probably won't dip my toe in there and get potentially into an argument that I'll look and get embarrassed in. I've got to say, right now, there is the word market that is currently used in our electricity market. Much like the Democratic Republic of Korea calls itself democratic. And this happens a lot with people chucking a word in their name. It doesn't make them what they say they are. I know I can get in trouble these days for saying that calling yourself something doesn't make you what you say you are, but with North Korea and with the electricity market, I tried to do a little primer recently on the amount of regulation going on in the electricity market. I spent a few weeks and couldn't scratch the surface. Instead, I just made a list of all of the different regulators and quangos and government bodies and pseudo bodies and macro bodies and micro regulators. And that list itself was one of the longest blog posts I'd ever written, and I didn't even explain what they were, I just listed them. I struggle to believe there's anyone in Australia that fully understands how every element of electricity and energy regulation works in the country. So we are a long, long way away from having a market system, and I suspect that's been true for quite a while. I think it is worthwhile having the discussion of whether the market system could work. I'm perhaps a bit more optimistic about whether it could give us a result that's worth considering. However, in the spirit of agreement, I do accept that the second thing you said, like whether it is practical, that is a big question. And we have messed up the system so much to get here, it is not clear exactly how you unscramble the egg quickly. So I will grant you that it can be quite messy. I still think the first conversation is worth having, because unless you know what you think you should be moving towards, how can you start the journey? So I still think the first conversation is worth having, and I still think, I don't think it's practical with the current political system we have in Australia, and where we're currently sitting now to click our fingers and jump to a market. But I think it is worthwhile considering that if we could, how would that look? And would it be worth exploring? And I guess, I don't know, this isn't my space, but I'd be curious to hear what, if in a hypothetical, perhaps unrealistic market system, if that did emerge, what about that would be inadequate for the creation of a nuclear industry in Australia? Why would we need government involvement?